let's start with an easy question, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So what is consciousness?
What is consciousness? Yeah. Well, I think once I had a poster maybe kicking around somewhere in my office with three different definitions, and there's no gold standard definition of it. That's the funny thing. We all know roughly what it is. But yeah, in the end, in this pioneering field, we're just like, okay, we've been arguing about consciousness for thousands of years. We have a lot of new technological tools and a sort of interdisciplinary milieu in which to study it. Let's go get on with it without having a precise scientific definition. The most intuitive one would be something along the lines of consciousness is what disappears when you fall into dreamless sleep at the beginning of the night each night. And then perhaps flickers in and out during the early hours of the morning when you start dreaming, and then sort of returns in its full glory when the alarm clock goes off. You wake up for the day. Yeah. I have my technical definition, which I've spent much of my career being very intrigued by the integrated information theory of consciousness, which is very it's quite a controversial theory, but if you view it as being in its infancy, then I think it's the only theory that has an inkling into what might be the ultimate physical substrate of consciousness on the most fundamental level of description of what kind of what's special about the kind of activity that you have matter that generates consciousness. And so, yes, I have a technical definition from that. Consciousness is information that is intrinsic to some physical matter. We don't have an equation for that yet. Integrated information theory thinks it has a formula for that, but hasn't got it right as stands. And then I have my spiritual definition. Consciousness is a mirror through which the universe looks at itself.
Can you expand at that definition? The spiritual definition.
Yeah, so kind of my view of sort of the universe and consciousness, and perhaps we get into more detail later on, but that yeah, we're in some sense all part of one cosmic being that somehow stretches across the whole universe, and conscious experiences just happen in certain places around the universe, and all those experiences kind of just are. There's no absolute time it is right now in the universe, so you can just think there's all these conscious experiences that just exist. They just are. So it's not like the whole universe is conscious of everything, but there are all these moments of conscious experience that are happening various places in the universe. I'm agnostic about how many places outside of this planet, but and when and where those conscious experiences happen, it's like some of the universe is aware of some of the universe. So consciousness is a mirror through which the universe looks at itself.
Some of the universe is aware of some of the universe, did you say?
Yeah. Yes, I am some of the universe, and I am right now aware of some of the universe. Yeah.
Interesting. So,
but I'm not fundamentally a separate being from you or animals around us that have some degree of consciousness. We all just are part of this same big fabric.
So what led you to the conclusion that of this interconnectedness when it comes to consciousness between living beings?
Yeah. It's just basic thought experiments, really. I mean, I mean, you can start with the realization of Descartes. I think, therefore I am. So, you know, I exist. And then you look at basic science and you think, okay, you know, I mean, I could think that everything's an illusion, but you know, let's go with the basic assumption that, you know, science is broadly correct. You know, we can make empirical observations and more or less trust them. So then, you know, just a sort of rudimentary faith in science shows, okay, well, that consciousness is arising from my brain. You know, I assume my brain does exist as well, perhaps working in tandem with some parts of my body potentially. And then I see there's other human beings in the world and they have brains. I can put them in the scanner and their brains behave more or less like mine. Like I have seen an image of my brain in a fMRI scanner once. It looks kind of similar to other people's. And so then you conclude that if matter arranges itself in a certain way, then consciousness arises. But then you look at the atoms and the particles that are in my brain, and those kind of come and go during your lifetime. Those get recycled a bit, and so there's no atoms with my name on them. And so, yeah, where does this leave you then? I mean, you can just I'm quite a believer in, you know, I'll believe the simplest theory that fits the data, you know, until more data come along, or, you know, or a simpler theory comes along. And assuming I am like a separate being that somehow, yeah, comes into being at my birth and then dies at my death, that needs some other sort of mechanism to kind of put that in there. Whereas if there's just ultimately one being, then yeah, that's just there in all of the atoms of the universe. And they all have potential for conscious experiences. Conscious experiences will happen. And so it's a simpler hypothesis then that it is the universe having these experiences, and then the universe just continues to exist. And you're not proposing that there's something else that's coming into existence when atoms arrange themselves in a certain way. With this kind of thinking, it leads me to panpsychism, where ultimately everything has like maybe a very, very, very tiny amount of consciousness. And then the question becomes, how do you draw the boundary around one unified consciousness that's having a unified experience? And so I'm having like one big conscious experience, and I think the substrate of that unified conscious experience that I'm having right now is maybe a few centimeters cubed within my brain. I mean, that's the thing to, that a theory of consciousness, you know, the sort of physical theory of consciousness needs to explain. How do we determine where that boundary lies?
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I can unpack some of the stuff that's said as we go. There's a lot. There's a lot there. Yeah.
Okay. You've mentioned panpsychism.
Yeah.
You've mentioned integrated information theory.
Yeah.
So tell me if I understood correctly. You're saying that it's simpler to conclude that consciousness is a fundamental property of matter, than to conclude that something external comes and puts this consciousness inside of us.
Yeah.
That's something that's outside the matter that already exists.
Yeah.
Okay.